You're gone.
Awesome. Okay, yay, we get to start. Woo. Hi guys. Okay, so welcome online. Sounds like everybody found your handout, so that's good. I'm glad for that. Welcome to the Enneagram at Work and Therapy. I will try to contain my excitement and stay in one place, and I'm super excited about this topic. So here, let me just give you the heads up. This is where we're headed. Overview. We're going to talk a little bit about discovering your number, and then talk about just here at work, and then exploring a little bit more about some of the different words included in the Enneagram. Then we're going to talk about helping your clients with the Enneagram. When I did that survey, the 9 of y'all who responded, thank you for that, said that it was half and half of understanding how to care well for your coworker and how to help in therapy. So we're going to do both. And then afterwards, we're going to talk about some next steps, and you've got slides of all your resources. On that share drive is about 9 different PDFs. So all those PDFs we'll talk about at some point. If you're filling in the blanks, all the underlined words on the screen are your fill-in-the-blank words. Okay? And I've got volume turned up here on you guys online so I can hear you guys if you say anything. And I've got my glasses on so I can see if you say anything too. Okay. So overview of the Enneagram. It's pronounced Enneagram. And Enne means 9. Gram, that's where we get the word diagram. So we get Enneagram. So the Enneagram is a map. It's like a GPS for both self-discovery and personal growth. And it has 9 different basic personality types. The history of the Enneagram is very clouded, as you can see if you're reading along in the road back to you. So we're not going to go really into the history of it. We're just going to talk about what it is and what it does. So basically, it accurately and clearly describes why you think, feel, and behave in particular ways. So why you think, feel, and behave, as opposed to some of the other personality typing tools. It's also based upon your core fears and your core desires. So we're going to go inside as opposed to looking outside of behaviors. And that leads us to the next one. It's all about motivations behind what you do and not the behaviors themselves. Although we see some of the behaviors described, we're really going to understand motivations. And each type has a healthy, an average, and an unhealthy zone. So you can go from healthy to average to unhealthy. That's why you might have been following along with some of the comments, or if you hear some of us talking and we're like, wow, you're that number? Well, that's kind of like a compliment in a way, because hopefully we're acting in more of our healthy ranges. Okay, I'm going to blow through these first few ones so we can get to the good stuff. The power of the Enneagram is its ability to harness and transform. So the way I think about this is like when I'm working with my dog Bauer. He has a harness on him because he's crazy strong and crazy smart. So if he wants to do something, he thinks he can. But if I harness him, then I can steer him and stop him. So the Enneagram is similar to that. It's also similar to the GPS metaphor, where we can harness our direction and we can transform those self-limiting behaviors into life-enhancing personal empowerment. So that's why it's really good in therapy. You can see some of those therapeutic words and tones in that. The gift of the Enneagram is that through self-discovery, you can create and sustain meaningful, lasting relationships with others, with God, and with yourself, too. So it's relationships with others and God. And the purpose is to develop this self-knowledge and to learn how to recognize and to disidentify with the parts of our personalities that limit us. So we all have parts of our personalities that are limiting for us. So this is why we're recognizing and disidentifying with those that limit us. Little thought pounder comes out of the Road Back to You book from Thomas A. Kempis. A humble self-knowledge is a surer way to God and a search after deep learning. It's a good thought to ponder. A little challenging for some of us, different types. So what the Enneagram is not and how to use it. First of all, what it's not. It's not a satanic symbol. Since the history is fairly clouded, some people have wondered about that, especially in the Christian community, because it's a 9-pointed star. the image that I use on a lot of these and the images I use with my clients, it's not, I don't have the circle around it, and people are often more accepted of the image without the circle, and so you'll see that on there. It's also not a sword, and it's not a shield. It's not a way to pigeonhole, nor an excuse for behavior. So example, I can't say, well, I'm an 8, deal. So you can't have an excuse for that behavior. So how to use it? It's a tool to become the healthiest version of ourselves, aligned with the gospel. So a lot of the resources that we are using and that I've been using with the Enneagram for the last few years with my clients is those versions that are Christian. That's going to talk a lot about aligning us with the gospel. So to discover your number, I promise I'll slow down as we get closer to the co-working part and to the therapeutic part. So discovering your number, tools and tips. First of all, an assessment can give you a starting place. It is just a starting place. So many people, including probably about 80% of the clients I've worked with, and probably about 80% of friends I've worked with too, the assessment really just shows you what you could possibly be typed as. However, the best way to discover your number is to explore the types one at a time. That's why with Road Back to You, they talk about it. When they say read through each one of these, see what you resonate with. The thing to keep in mind is all of us have all the numbers in one way, shape, or form. So if it's difficult to find your number, you're normal and you're human, and that's very, very typical. So here's some assessments to start with. First of all, Beth McCord is an incredible Enneagram coach. She's also a pastor's wife, and she's also a discipleship teacher out of Nashville. So many of the good Enneagram coaches come out of Nashville. I don't know what. But that's Beth's website, and it's on your handouts too. Your Enneagram coach, she has a free one there. Her free one is based on the Ready, which is the next one, but it's a shorter version. The Ready, you do have to pay for it because you will get a lot of information. And then, of course, Ian Cron and Susan Stabile use the IEQ9, which is the even more intense assessment version. So you pay more because you get more info even after that one too. So those are 3 of the multitudes of different assessments you can take that are available online. So let's go through the 9-type overviews. So you guys, how many in here present physically have y'all read the Road Back to You? Okay. And have you read or understand any of the other resources where you know the types of the numbers? Okay, cool. What about online? How many of you guys have read through or understand the different types? Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay. Okay, so you'll follow along. Here's the 9 types overview, and we're going to go literally an overview so that you can dive in farther in Road Back to You or on any of those websites that are listed at the end. So number one is titled The Moral Perfectionist or The Perfectionist. These titles and these names for each type come from Beth McCord and also from Ian Cron and Susan Stabile. So the message that the 1 typically hears is you are good. And then number 2 is usually called the supportive advisor or the helper. Their message is you are wanted and loved. Number 3 is the successful achiever or the performer. They want to hear you are loved for simply being you. The 4 is the romantic individualist or the romantic. You are seen and loved for who you are, special and unique. The number 5 is the investigative thinker, or known as the investigator. That message that they want to hear is your needs are not a problem. Number 6 is loyal guardian, or the loyalist. That message is you are safe and secure. And number 7 is known as the entertaining optimist, or the enthusiast. And their kind of message is you will be taken care of. Number 8 is known as the protective challenger, or the challenger. And the message that we 8s like to hear is you will not be betrayed. Number 9 is the peaceful mediator, or the peacemaker. And that message they like to hear is your presence matters. So I can see some of your numbers here in the room. for those of you with your numbers here in the room, do you agree or identify with these messages that are next to your number? Yeah? Okay. What about you guys online?
I'll tell a very short story.
Yeah.
When I was a little girl, I was promised that if I was behaved, I could go see the movie downtown Dallas. We came out of the movie, and my mother said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "You're quiet. You're so quiet. What's wrong?" And I go, "I'm thinking." And she said, "About what?" I said, "Could that be true?" And she said, "Well, no, people can't fly. We just come out of Peter Pan." And she said, "No, people can't fly." And I go, No. Could you not ever have to grow up? So being number 7, Peter Pan, just kind of relates, I guess.
That's awesome.
I don't know, it has anything to do with the reality, but that's my story. And I don't understand it yet.
Well, thanks, Charles. Okay, so here's the Timothy Center by type. So far, there was 9 people who responded to the survey. The rest of y'all, you're dead to me. So, number 1, we possibly have one person who might be a 1. So this is going to show to the point of your assessment will not definitely tell you what it is. So there's some people who are still figuring out their types, and this takes a while. So number 2, there were 2 people that confirmed that they are 2s. Number 3, we didn't have any responses for number 3. You think so? Molly says Josh might be one. Number 4, we had one person. Hey Josh, do you think you might be a 3? Are you a 3?
I do 3 in stress.
Okay.
Come on, then.
Number 5, we think we might possibly have one person who's a 5. Number 6, we have one person who identified as a 6. 7, we didn't have any responses. Really, you think so?
Yeah.
Josh is
Oh, I
pointing
know
at
so.
himself. Yeah.
You're 7.
Oh, I responded.
Uh-uh.
Molly, that 1 was you probably, right?
Yeah, that was me because I'm a 6.
Yeah. 2 6s here. I am a 6.
And number 8, this is crazy, you guys. You rarely have this many 8s in one group of people. So we have possibly 4 8s, and they're all female. So yeah. Okay.
I heard 8s called this week.
I know, right?
I heard 8s called this week in 8-hole.
You know Liz is an 8, right?
Uh-huh.
He's like, that's like 7.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Much saying about the 8.
Yeah, you don't need to know. It's all there.
I'll be there later.
Gosh, this is on camera.
And number 9, we have one person who identified as a 9. There was one person, and I want to know who it is if they're in this room, who said, "I know my Enneagram number" when I asked the question, "What is your number?" You didn't put a number. You just said, "I know my Enneagram number." Yeah, probably,
Keeping it
right?
to myself.
Okay, so this is kind of the layout of the Timothy Center. Here's one of the beauties of the Enneagram. One of the beauties of the Enneagram, if you think back to the gift, the power, and the purpose that we talked about in the first few slides, is that when you put these in a place of co-working places, we get to understand what each other needs to hear as we're working together. So if we really want to move the ball forward on different things, if we know how each other is thinking and processing, then we can come through that lens to be able to go forward faster, right? So, here's a nice little quote that one of the Enneagram coaches that I love said, "The Enneagram is so important at work because we don't understand each other. At work, we often don't have time to sit down and have deep conversations. The Enneagram can give us the shorthand of, okay, I know that this is how you see the world, so how can I work with that?" So, here are the 9 types of work. So as we go through these, I would love to have some interaction from you guys. Like, tell me what you think about this from your perspective on your number. So tips for all types. Some tips first is clearly communicate, get to know each other, and be honest and positive with feedback. However, different types like different types of feedback in different formats. Us 8s, we're like, just give it to me straight and give it to me direct. If you're upset with me, tell me. If you need me to do something, tell me. Don't beat around the bush. So number 1, Number one, typically at work, there's the thought of there's a right way. So if you want to work with ones well, be on time, appreciate their efforts, and give criticism one-on-one. Any thoughts? No? Okay.
This is Molly?
No.
No.
So number twos. Typically, they want to hear support. Their kind of thing at work is, I want to support and empower others. So twos typically need our help as coworkers to encourage them to say no and ask what they need, but really mean it. Don't just say, hey, how are you? Keep walking. No. And then also accept their help or redirect their energy, because twos are rock star helpers.
How many twos do we have?
I got that on the survey, but I don't feel like that.
You don't feel like it's you? Okay.
There's more twos than are. You said there was 2 that reported it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a 2.
I agree with that too. Yeah, I agree with that too. Typically, if you're in a ministry setting, you're going to see a whole heck of a lot of twos. Okay, so threes, the world is a contest. My husband is a 3, and he's like, oh yeah, it is. So they typically need to hear the bottom line first. If I'm telling them a story, I got to skip to the end. Or if I need help with something, I'm like, no, here's what it is. Don't interrupt them when they're explaining or talking about something, but schedule a time to interact with them or to work with them. And then follow through and work fast. Because if they've kind of thought of a project, it needs to be done like that. So some of these are unrealistic, but that's why we work together to kind of create the realistic expectations around this. So number fours. Fours typically kind of feel this way about their work. My work is deep, but something is often missing. So for fours, typically we can help widen that focus, but not lessen their intensity. We need their intensity. Also value their emotions and help them see beyond that emotional connection. And also don't minimize feelings. So any thoughts from anybody on this one?
Are all millennials 4s?
No.
No.
No? No. That's such a 6 thing to say.
You're no worse.
Okay, so number fives. Fives at work are typically the masters of knowledge and strategy. They typically like to work independently, so email is the best way of communicating with them. If you give them space and conversation, they're not just quietly dozing, they're literally thinking and strategizing. And if you want them to be a part of a meeting, give them a heads up ahead of time so that they can prep. So those are fives. Sixes. So sixes at work may say the world is dangerous and I need allies. So with sixes, if you want to work well with sixes, keep your word, tell them the whole facts, and let them help you problem solve, because they're really gifted problem solvers. Sixes, any thoughts?
Google Docs.
Yeah,
Google Docs.
That describes Molly. What if you can't let your 6 out at work?
Well, we can help you with that.
That's why I'm like,
Leaders cannot be 6s.
Here.
It's very difficult for a leader to be a 6.
That's
At
why you're
work.
not a 6.
But that's what you are?
You don't see me at 3 a.m.
So sevens. Sevens like to explore all the exciting and wonderful, fun possibilities. And with sevens, you want to minimize micromanaging them. You also want to help them explore options, but don't crush their excitement. Just help them channel their excitement. And support for a 7 equals people will help me get things done. So, any thoughts, sevens?
We didn't have to, right?
Cheating.
Oh yeah, God, for sure.
Charles said he was 1, right?
He's not sure. Do you think maybe?
So don't forget Jeannie. Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Charles and Peter Pan, do you have any thoughts about 7?
Oops.
You might be sick.
Yeah, don't micromanage me, don't tell me. I'll figure it out.
Okay.
Let's just look at the rainbow and explore the possibilities, and let's do it on the golf course. Hey, Josh.
Will is 200 gold.
Of course, yes. Tee it up.
That's Sarah, by the way.
Is she 2-7? Okay. That's awesome. So I'm an 8-7 wing. So 8s at work. Ladies, chime in. Large and in charge, and we will stand up for others. So we got your back. And for us, be honest and authentic. And also meet my strength with yours. An unhealthy 8 will always come at you and expect you to rise up and not back down. Also give it to me straight. Any thoughts, ladies?
Yeah, that was right on.
Okay.
Thanks.
Are you going to plan the wing?
Vanessa.
What's that?
Are you going to plan the wing?
Yes, we will get to wings.
Great.
So 9s, the message at work is typically, let's stay calm and connected, y'all. Let's all hang out and have fun. So 9s, put it in writing if you want to connect with them or talk to them. Remind them that their work is important to the team, because 9s can get very silent. Also, I need clarity and your full focus when you're talking with me. So don't multitask when you're working with them down.
My wife.
Yeah, it's Katie.
A little bit of me.
Okay.
I need your eyes, Josh.
Listen with your face. Okay, so that's the 9 types at work. Okay, so we're gonna check in for like 3 minutes. Anybody have any stories about working with different types at work? Or you having somebody understand you and working well with you?
So I had a lot
Yeah,
of
Tori.
bad previous experiences.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah.
was not managed effectively. And I had this one boss who, at two jobs ago, so when I worked in Kansas Chaplain, and that particular boss, he like met me head on. He was a direct shooter. He never ever made me feel like my value was questioned. And I just totally, like, he could say the most insulting thing ever, and I still felt accepted and valued. And I had no clue why I was so receptive to it. I was like, what is he doing differently from everybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Tori, you had a story?
Oh no, so I haven't read it yet. So you can be several of these, or is it a wing thing? I guess we'll learn how.
Yeah, we'll learn more about the wings. But yes, every person has some part of every
All of
number
these.
in them.
Okay.
Yeah. And it will take a while to really discern what your real type is. Yeah. Any other stories? So I have a story of being an 8 in 2 different work settings, and being a female 8 who is 5 feet. Yes, thank you. So my first career was I designed multi-home buildings and I designed senior living facilities. So I was construction supervisor and project manager of interior design and construction facilities. So the unhealthy 8 in me was very prevalent when I was on the construction site, because I could go onto a site, even 5 foot, like red-haired me, and be like, stop the whole crew, and say, no, that is wrong. You were doing it this way. So the unhealthy part of me was super large and in charge. But then, right after that career, God called me to ministry. So I switched, just huge switch. So I went from doing that to being in school for professional counseling and working part-time at a church. My boss, supervisor at that time, was also my pastor. If you guys know Brian Wallace was my boss / pastor at the same time, yeah. So Brian looked at me like one of the first days that we met, and he said, girl, you get things done. But you're a terrible admin, because I was part-time and I was doing mostly admin. So he was like, we're changing your job now, and you are in charge of this. So that was super helpful, to be able to have some coaching to be more of a healthy 8 in 2 different work settings, and have 2 different types of people really understand, but value it in different ways. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit more about, as we're exploring this, we're going to do a few slides here to understand some of the nuances and different words of the Enneagram, and then we're going to jump into using it in therapy. So first, let's talk about God in the Enneagram. So the Enneagram is kind of a way of showing us rumble strips. You guys know when you're driving on the highway and you verge a little bit too far towards the middle of the far lane, and then your tire goes and it goes through and it tells you speed off the highway. Well, that's kind of what the Enneagram can do. The Enneagram is a bit of a rumble strip. And these are the arrows and the lines that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Those rumble strips let you know when you're getting off track. There's also guardrails from the Enneagram. The guardrails are like the wings and your triads. And both these together, your rumble strips and your guardrails, will keep you aligned with the gospel if you use the Enneagram in a helpful way. If we think about this through the lens of what Jesus has done for us, Jesus took all of our core motivations, he took all of our core fears, and he took them to the cross. We don't have to earn anything, we don't have to be impressive, we don't have to protect, we are secure. And we can just be. So one of the PDFs that y'all see in your shared file is this PDF of God's invitations for spiritual renewal for each type. It'll be interesting to see if you get a chance to look at those over the next week, which one of those works for your type. The spiritual renewal that's most helpful for 8s is, I hate it, it's stillness mixed with solitude mixed with centering prayer. It's super
Oh my
helpful.
gosh, it's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, it totally is. It works really well, and we could probably challenge each other to do this over the next month or so and see what we see in changes, but it's a good thing. It just
I'm
hurts.
gonna mute that group chat.
Okay, so moving on, exploring more. Here's now we're going to talk a little about the arrows and the lines. There's another PDF under there called Enneagram Types Under Stress. Now you've got your stress numbers and security or growth numbers. You might have seen some people put their wings on there. So wings are different than your stress or your growth numbers. So stress numbers are indicated by the arrow pointing away from your number. Security or growth numbers are indicated by the arrow pointing towards your number. So think of it this way. When you're stressed, you're like going, pushing everything away. And then for security or growth, you're okay with people coming in. So that's the number that's pointing towards your number. So you want to develop mindfulness and intentionality to identify when we're moving forward toward our stress numbers and when we can instead move toward our security numbers. So there's some intentionality with the motivations. This also ties back to how we can love our coworkers well. If we know each other's core messages that we need to hear or know the specific ways to work well with each other, we can help each other when we're in stress, because being here, we are constantly in stress, but we can help each other move more toward the security or the growth numbers too. Okay. Charles, here's the wing numbers. So wing numbers are those numbers on either side of your identified number. So if you think of wing, think about you have wings. So what's on either side of you? So for example, if you look at the diagram, type 8 can have a 7 wing, or they can have a 9 wing.
Never both.
You might have twinges, but typically it's more 1. And then here on the one on the screen is a type 9 with an 8 wing. And those have their own little names or descriptions too. Like a type 9 with an 8 wing is a comfort seeker. And you can see kind of the differences in the behaviors or the motivations in a type 9 with a 1 wing, which is the dreamer. So there's some specific ways that we can see and identify when that's happening or how to help each other go there. Like for example, if we're working with a type 9 who has a 1 wing and we want to help them kind of develop their wingness, then we would help them think about, let's kind of move out into this area of thinking more dreamy, of kind of looking out towards objectives and possibilities. And let's do this together. So there's some different ways to kind of work along here. Now triads. This is when it starts to get a little tricky. So to help you think about wings, again, wings are the sides beside you. Triads, because there's 9 whole numbers, a triad is another way of describing how you habitually take in, process, and respond to life. The 9 numbers are divided into 3 triads. That's why they're called the triads. So each of the 3 numbers is driven in some way by an emotion. And this emotion, they relate it to a part of the body. I don't know why, I don't know who did it, but that's what it does. So it's either gut, heart, or head. And you kind of see this in some of the different types. So 8, 9, and 1 is in the gut or anger triad. And typically you'll see us driven by kind of instinctual responses. And these deep core gut responses, they will lead us to be very honest and be very direct. And then the next triad is the 2s, 3s, and 4s. 2s, 3s, and 4s, they kind of are called the heart triad, or the feeling, or the shame triad. And typically this triad is related to life that leads them to be more image conscious than other numbers. The last triad is the head triad. The head is also known as the fear or the anxiety triad. This is number 5, 6, and 7. And these are driven by related to life that leads them to think and to plan carefully before they act. So you can see the differences in the 3 different triads, right? So before we jump into more of this, any questions about triads?
I've got one.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing about like where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
When I do EMDR and I assess for where in your body you're carrying that trauma, I'm curious if there's a connection between, because some people talk about what's in my heart, some people talk about what's in my head. I think it's funny when it goes, so my head is heavy. I'm like, I've never experienced that. What does that mean, your head is heavy?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's a connection between this and that sort of experience and where they walk through trauma.
Absolutely, 100% there is. So there's a whole bunch of research on using the Enneagram with trauma. Susan Stabile, on her podcast, it's called The Enneagram Journey. She goes into some really cool stories about using the Enneagram with trauma clients. And she interviews several different clinicians in different fields about how they use it in different ways. So absolutely 100%. Now,
What is that called again?
The Enneagram Journey. It's a podcast. It's the second author that does the Road Back to You, Susan Stabile. So it doesn't always, if a person says, hey, I feel this in my gut, it doesn't necessarily mean they're part of the gut triad. It might just be related to the trauma itself. But it is really interesting then to help them identify their Enneagram type, which then can help them find that alignment with the gospel, and also can help them partner with other people to then bring the strengths out as well. So it's very community focused in that lens. Okay, any other questions about triads? They're not a Chinese gang. Okay, moving on. So now, talking about helping clients. So with clients, you can help them discover their type, you can help them explore their type, you can help them integrate their story into their type, and then you can use this working with different types of clients, and then a lot of clients will want daily applications for helping them become you. This language of discover, explore, become comes from Beth McCord, and I follow her. I've taken several of her classes. So I like this language because it is about discovering and exploring. But then becoming is this place where we're in relationship with God and others, really aligned under who we truly are. So first, discovering their type. Discovering their type looks like what we're doing. We're kind of just discovering what our own types are, discovering what each other's types are. This can take a lot of work. And when you're working with a client, you can often have them take the free assessments, or if they want to go really deep and they want data, you can have them, pay for the other ones. Usually when I'm working with clients, I will ask them in their intake, I will ask them, hey, have you ever heard of this thing called the Enneagram? And I'll describe it's a GPS that kind of helps you figure out your best core motivations and help you connect well with God and others. Would you be willing to take it so we can use it in counseling to help you with your goals? And 98% of clients will take it. So then after we understand this, we go through this together and we kind of explore it together. And
One question.
Yeah.
Which assessment do you recommend?
For a majority of clients, they don't want to pay for it, so I do Beth McCord's, and that's the website, yourenneagramcoach.com. So then exploring their type goes in deep. you can go through this list of things that are here on exploring their type, helping them look at a healthy self-image. As you guys can see, when you're reading your different types, you typically have the, oh yeah, that's me, or you have the, oh my god, I'm so embarrassed, that's me. Because it kind of just nails you in some places that can feel a little bit gross and ugly. So healthy self-image is a really helpful kind of progression by using the Enneagram. And the instinctuality that is part of the Enneagram can be a part of your work too. And then you can kind of see as you look through here these different ways. We'll highlight on the next slide talking about what each type looks for in a relationship, because this is a really helpful way to use it with couples and with families and with teens and parents. Okay, so working with different clients. With individuals, it's easy to work with an individual with the Enneagram because you can just talk one-on-one. The challenge with working with an individual with an Enneagram is you have nobody else's input. So oftentimes when working with clients with their own Enneagram is I'll have them get input from other people in their life. And we'll put that all together and work with that together. With parents, teens, and couples, this is where it gets fun because you can use the whiteboard. And you ask everybody to take the Enneagram to see what they think could be their best fit type, and then put it up on the whiteboard and describe the strengths and the weaknesses of each type, describe the messages each type needs to hear, and then go on the whiteboard and make marks on it, like check marks. Okay, how many times this week have you heard this message you need to hear? How many times a week have you heard this other message that kind of hurts? And then really ask each other, did you have any idea that your so-and-so would want to hear this? You know, it's a good way to kind of tie it all in together. And then when you dive deep into some of the resources, even with Roadmap to You, you can get specific practical things that you can work on with each other on that. And then integrating with their story. There's so many different therapeutic models that really line up with working with the Enneagram. And you can take those different models, line them up, and understand the key elements of each type. But then you can help clients look through different books and look at the childhood questions. So the childhood questions are very helpful when we're working with integrating their story. That also allows us to apply it in different roles. For example, the majority of our clients are functioning in multiple roles in a given day. So they're a child, they're a student, they're a friend, they might be a mentor, they're a parent, they're a coworker, they're a spouse. So if you look at these different roles, they might function at different types or different levels of integration or alignment in these different roles. So in one role, a given person might be on the healthy part of their type, but in another role, they might be verging on the unhealthy or misaligned part of their type. So when we're working on helping integrate their story and helping them become you through the Enneagram and our different therapeutic models, that's where we can align it all together and bring them a lot of strength and practicality in this. Does that make sense? Okay. So then just a couple of thoughts on daily applications, and then I'll give you all.
Are the childhood questions associated with the childhood wounds?
Yeah, they're
That's
all
what, for me, was most helpful
reading
to find
those.
the number. Yeah.
Okay. That was the same thing for David too. Several of my clients, they read those, but
And you connect with
you
those.
connect to them.
Yeah.
Because it's not always just the wounding, it's also like, how were you treated as a child
Yeah.
when it talks about that.
Yeah.
So then some daily applications. Like daily applications would look like, how do we actually understand where is this coming out for you in your different times of your day? How are you applying some of the strength numbers or your growth numbers? How are you working on your wing? So you can work on different focuses for their attention with this. And you can help them with their unique growth path. One of the things that can be frustrating for some clients when coming into counseling is if they get diagnosed with something, they think that this is the way it's going to go because every counselor is going to treat me this way because this is my diagnosis. But one of the things with the Enneagram is it lines up and then it says, well, you're all unique. So what is your unique growth plan? What is your unique calling? How has God uniquely equipped you? And how can I use this tool to help you get aligned with the gospel of how you are truly you? So that's one of the beauties of this. Okay. So here's some resources, but let's talk about any thoughts or questions about utilizing this in counseling with your clients. Anybody have some stories of doing it?
One of my 16-year-olds, he actually brought it to me. I have that necklace. She actually brought it to me, and it like helped. We kind of walked through just what she thinks everyone in her family is in her relations with them, and like her dad is an 8 but super unhealthy, and she's a 2, and so just like, and she was a really unhealthy and has gotten, so it's given her power over her like heart of wanting to help, but also like helped her understand, okay, here's what I can and can't do with some people around me, and like here's what I have to take control of and stuff. And so that's been really cool for her.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. Other stories? So I shared a little bit of kind of how I've worked on with it with different couples and teens and parents. One of the biggest family breakthroughs I had in sessions recently was with a family where we did this. And it was a teen, a mom, a dad, and a sibling. And we put everybody's types on the board next to their different messages that typically those types like to hear. And then we talked about typically the core fears and core woundings that happen with each type. And there were literally tears in the room, and there was a group hug at the end. So we didn't have to work very much after that. So it was a really powerful time of seeing them actually integrate it. Okay, so here's some more PDF resources for you. And I'm super sad that we're about out of time, but your resources in your drive, you've got those 9 different PDFs. And I just kept all the PDFs directly from the sources that I got them from, so you can use those and utilize those. You can also sign up for all those different coaches' emails, and they'll send you more resources throughout the months. And the main people that I got my information from was the Enneagram Institute. Of course, the Road Back to You, the coach Beth McCord, and the coach Lauren Elkins Gray. So that's where a majority of my resources come from. So here are some thoughts about where to go from here. Using that language from Beth, discover you, explore you, becoming you. So discovering you would be learning more about your type, and then going through the PDFs and working together on your growth plan. But then also, to the degree that you want us as your coworkers to be involved, let us know what you think your type might be, and we'll help you explore and discover it together. Because we can do some of those things together that we looked at through the 9 types at work, that side. And then explore you. Consider getting coaching. I've gotten my own individual coaching and coaching for some training working with clients, and it's super helpful. But then also some workshops are great too, because you get to talk with different types, or you can do some groups with people who are your type and talk through what life is like through the lens of your type. You guys, you might know Leslie Bly. She works at the Austin Oaks Church office with us, Southeast. So Leslie, thank you. Leslie does a lot of these workshops. So if you want to get on her email list, then she sends out different workshops, but she also posts them on CCT too. And she's got great workshops. She's a 6. And then becoming you. Becoming you. You can steer your life in that direction for your best self. And the best way to do that is, of course, to involve other people so that the rest of us can kind of help. But then people that are core in your life can help you with this. And they don't have to know the Enneagram in order to help you steer, but they can help you by identifying those rumble strips and identifying the guardrails when those are happening for you. Like, for example, the way David and I do it to where it does not cause a fight is he'll say, I feel like you might be exploring on this little rumble strip over here. Or I might look at him and say, what? What are you saying? Just tell me. He's like, well, you're being rude. So some of those times with the rumble strips, you can help each other identify where that is and then how to kind of merge it back over. And then also, one of the biggest things about becoming you is celebration. celebrating our uniquenesses. A lot of times with the Enneagram, we can look at the core fears and we can look at the ugly parts of what the Enneagram kind of points out and get kind of annoyed, embarrassed, or sad about those things. But there's amazing uniquenesses that we each have that we can celebrate with each other. Okay, there's the rest of the main sources. You got Beth, Road Back to You, and Lauren Elkins Gray. All these websites are on your handouts, and the additional sources are on there too. If you like podcasts, Annie F. Down, she's a 7, so she's got a super fun podcast. She did a series this past summer called the Ennea Summer, and she interviewed people with all the different types. Plus, she interviewed coworkers and couples and some different artists with these different types too. So those are super fun. And she also tagged it alongside, if you like music, Sleeping at Last is an amazing artist, and they have written songs for each type. And each song is pretty incredible. So Sleeping at Last, and Annie has them kind of like on her podcast for each one of the Ennea Summers. So any last thoughts or stories that you guys want to share before we wrap up this blur through the Enneagram?
There's a lot more to it than I thought, like all the triads.
Yeah, right? What do you think about all of the different things that now that you're seeing?
It's interesting. It does seem like a lot of work to understand it all.
The cool thing I'll say about that is you don't have to understand it all to work well with your clients with it. You can explore it and learn about it along with them. That's what makes it really fun. It's a really community enhancing, relationship connection driven tool.
I feel like with, like, I would just say personally with friends, the one thing I feel like has been hard about it is, like, to me the Enneagram seems like you have to have, like, a fair amount of, like, insight. And when you lack that, it's hard to, like, I don't know. It's just hard.
Yeah.
You talking about me not being a 6?
No.
So what you're saying is like there's like a baseline of self-awareness you have to use
I kinda
to be
think
able to use
so.
it well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of get that.
Because, like, with Myers-Briggs, you could, like, type it because they're traits. So with the Enneagram, I'm like, if you don't have this, like, self-awareness or insight, or at least, like, an inkling of it, in my experience, it's been hard to, like, interact with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that would be,
That's
like, the
when-
one thing that I'm like, would this be useful for somebody who lacks that?
Yes.
There definitely seems to be a depth to it, like all the
Yes.
other things in 20-something years of counseling and the 4 animal types. They were just kind of cut and dry, and everybody could check it off your list.
Right.
Yeah.
Golden Retriever, Lion, Beaver, Otter. Yeah.
But I mean, it's great stuff and very applicable in lots of different ways, but a lot more understanding of it.
Absolutely. So yes, to your point, Molly, yeah, you do have to have a level of at least some insight, some self-awareness. It is a tool that helps you with self-discovery, but you have to have a little bit of it in order to get to use the tool properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's in some places of health or unhealth, then somebody might not be at a point where they're ready for the depth of the Enneagram, but it also can help develop that as you read through different types and explore it together with others to some degree.
What about different ages, like not younger kids or teenagers are still developing, but do you use it sometimes with teenagers?
Yes. I love using it with teenagers and with adolescents. Only because this is not like a specific typing measure. It's more about your core, like your core motivations, your core fears. So you can actually utilize it with younger clients. And it's really helpful when working with younger clients because parents can then understand how they parent the different types.
Yeah.
And how different types parent differently.
Right.
So it's great parenting. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks, y'all. Keep learning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Easiest to give me your eval now. If you don't, give me it on my desk.